The October 24th, 2022 Board of Trustees meeting for Wasatch Front Waste and Recycling District. Here at our district offices, we are going to go ahead and have a roll call by Catherine.
Right. Chair Warren.
Yes.
Vice Chair Daniel Gibbons.
Here.
Anna WFWRD.
Anna's here.
Anna WFWRD.
Here.
Here. Leanne Turner.
Here.
Eric Barney.
Here.
Steve Zussman.
Here.
Lori Stringham.
Here.
Patrick Schaefer.
It shows me online. You show me online.
Yes. Robert King.
For 30 minutes.
Scott Brackett. Scott Little.
Here.
Tessa Stitzer.
Here.
Tom Seibert. We'll last later. Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much for that. We'll move on to item number 1, which is our consent items, approval requested for September 26, 2022 board meeting minutes. Does anybody have any comments or changes that they need on the minutes? If not, I would accept a motion.
I'll make a motion, Dan Gibbons from Holiday, to approve the September 26th board meeting minutes, sorry.
I'll second.
Okay.
Diane Turner.
Okay, have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay. Move on to item number 2, which is when we have opportunity for public comment. And to comment from the public at time now. I don't see anybody here. Do we have anybody online?
Tom, just Old Creek City. I just got on.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Okay, it doesn't appear that we have any public comment, so we'll close that portion and move on to item number 3.1, which is the 2022 third quarter financial report.
Good morning. Third quarter financial report, and this is for the 9 months, the first 9 months of 2022, so from January 1st through September 30th. And then just remind everyone, the budget for the full year that what we have down here, and so when we look at those percentages, about three quarters of the year has occurred. So the first page is the revenues. Total revenues increased $211,000 from 2021. The increase was primarily due to a $99,000 loss on the sale of assets that was recorded in 2021, and we have not reported any loss on the sale of assets yet in 2022. And then also in 2022, there was increased residential waste collection fees of $108,000 and curbside fees of $91,000, and those amounts were partly offset by an increased loss on investments of $183,000. So when we look at this overall, pretty good news, fairly, I shouldn't say fairly stable revenues, which is good in the service that we provide, and we appreciate the stability of those revenues and also the stability of the service that we provide that's needed. And so when we look at that, revenues are up, some had a pretty good year so far. The investments are one area that's down significantly, really to be expected with what's gone on in the markets. We're invested in investments that are approved by the state and okay, but you still get some of those fluctuations. And then one thing that's improving slightly, you can see there is the interest income is up about $35,000, and that should improve more in the future too, since those interest rates that we're receiving on our investments are increasing. So, any questions on revenue? Okay, we'll move on to the next page. Total personnel expenses for 2022 increased $426,000 from 21, and that was primarily due to increased hourly pay rate, increased wages and overtime. which was due to increased hourly pay rates and then also an increased employee headcount. That accounted for $306,000 of that, and that is the first three lines of their wages, overtime, and temporary labor. And so temporary labor decreased fairly significantly, $113,000, but the wages and salaries increased almost $400,000 there. So really, those three categories, I kind of view them, they're different, but it's what it takes to get our work done. Wages and salaries, overtime, and temporary labor. And then when the wages and salaries increase, the other things increase too, such as the retirement, pension benefit, and some of those other things. When we have more people, we're going to have to pay a little more for health insurance, headcount, those type of things. So really, this was to be I think to be expected on what we budgeted or was anticipated, and so this really is not surprising. We can see down there that bottom line, second from the right, 68%, that's how much of our personnel budget we used through September. So, and then one thing too to remember is we do have seasonality, and so the busiest time of the year for us, we're just finishing on that now. So our expenses are not equal throughout the year, whether it's overtime and wages or refuse fees, those type of things. We're not consistent throughout the year. The summer's much busier time for us. Okay, next page is our operating expenses. And this is where we have some fairly significant increases. From last year, our total operating expenses increased $836,000. The increase was primarily due to increased fuel expense of $80,000, increased maintenance expense of $248,000, increased interlocal expenses, which was primarily the truck lease of $191,000, and then increased other expenses of $243,000. And on that other expenses, a good portion of that was the work we had done on our website. We redid that, and I think that's a little over $100,000 of that portion. So we look at this. When I look at this, I'm glad we are asking for a fee increase. Just seeing some of these trends, and then also just the future. What's fuel going to do? Who knows for sure. Maintenance is still. We are anticipating it to be up another 8% next year, and we can see here where those things increase fairly significantly. As far as disposal fees, they're really, we compare that whole category, disposal fees have actually decreased some, but that's really primarily due to our tons have decreased, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. Recycling fees look fairly stable, but we'll look at the trend here in a minute, and the trend's not very stable. So it's increasing on its way up. So you see the chart, and it's like, wow, that's really changed. So, but when we look at this overall, our total operating expenses, we talked about them, and for the operating expenses, they were almost 77% of budget. And so we're, if everything was equal, we'd be over a little bit. Again, we have to remember seasonality, and we've already paid some of our expenses for the year. For example, our insurance we paid for the year, not our work comp, but our property and liability insurance, and also our rent for the building we paid for the year, and then also with seasonality. So when we look at the bottom line number, revenues less expenses, negative $1.3 million this year versus negative about $300,000 last year. So we'll get into some of these categories in a little more detail here. Any questions on this so far, though? Okay. This is the number of customers, basic service, and the graph here starts out at 84,000. I would like to just point that out. We can see increased a little over the last couple of years, not a significant increase. They're right around 86,000 customers now for our basic service. The next slide, this is fuel expenses. We can see here the increase is interesting, 19 and 20, but fairly stable. Increased in 21, and then in 22 we're up a little over 9%. And last time there was a couple questions on this as far as kind of what's our mix. And when we look at, in mix, I was referring to as far as diesel and CNG. And diesel gallons are about 10% of what we buy, so far this year. So it's about 10%, CNG is about 90%.
Now, is some of that, I assume we're using more fuel because we're serving more customers, so is that,
We actually use less fuel so far this year.
oh, really?
And a piece of that's the scrap program,
Oh, okay.
because we've had less trucks out, less employees on that. So our gallons have actually decreased this year through September.
So if we saw the normal percent of gallons, that would be even higher.
Oh, yes, yes.
It's pretty scary.
So gallons are down, and then also diesel last year through 9 months was $3.22. This year it's $4.77. So that's up $1.55 a gallon. And I think most of us are aware of that one. You know, we see it when we drive by the gas stations or if we have diesel vehicles. And then CNG was $1.70 last year, and this year it's $1.85, so it's up 15 cents.
Is there a way to see the number of gallons used versus the cost? We kind of see usage versus what
Yeah,
we're paying.
yeah, I have that, so.
That'd be great.
Providing that.
Like another line on here probably would help you if you usage with.
Yeah, well, yeah, I can look. The gallons have actually, so far overall decreased as far as the number of gallons used this year. Last year, we were at 454, and that's in total. This year, we're at 439,000, I should say.
And then 10% of that is diesel, roughly.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Well, and the trends all indicate even CNG is gonna keep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just
I
really
think
quick,
$2 per gallon next year.
The scrap program, we're using less fuels for that program. Are we bringing in the same tonnage?
No.
It's dropping considerably?
Yes. Because that was one of the reasons we'll look at here in just a minute, because our refuse tons have decreased. And I was looking at that, and I think it was about, I think scrap we were down about 1,000 tons this year.
Part of that is fewer containers going out because we don't have the staff.
Correct.
Yeah, and there are some partial loads, many of those. We'll dig in and really do an analysis for walking them through next year, what did 2022 look like? And what do we want to do going forward?
Yeah, I would love to know what the need versus use would be on that, even in my own city, Taylorsville. That if the need isn't there, could we save some money by using fewer, but for another day.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that all that needs to be a component of what we talked about last board meeting. It's really
There a
waiting
waiting
and
list,
needs. I mean, there's a waiting list for that.
There's,
There's,
correct.
So the need, obviously, I mean, there's a waiting list.
Well, I saw a lot of partial empty,
I see.
Part of that, though, is how we're doing it, I think,
Yeah, I agree.
because when we put it on the street, they always got filled.
Yeah.
so hopefully we can dig in and see.
Yeah.
And were they always full because the commercial places came by and filled them up, or was it?
I think we had,
I think that's something great that we could dig into.
yeah, I think we had a lot more of our residents using them.
Okay, next up, maintenance expense. And on this, kind of interesting, in 2020, it increased about 11%. Last year, it only increased about 3%. And this year, so far, we're about up 10% on maintenance expense. We anticipate this trend is gonna be there for the next year, we're estimating. So,
Most of that is most of that just our costs?
yes.
So our maintenance is about the same amount of maintenance?
Well,
Just more,
yes, yeah. And we do have more trucks now than we had years in the past. And part of that was by design. We were keeping older trucks. We wanted to increase our fleet some, which has actually turned out to be a blessing, and we'll talk about that in just a minute.
Right.
Keeping the trucks, but, a lot, it really is just a cost. I mean, on that side, you know, you have labor and the benefits there that have increased, and then parts have gone up significantly.
And I'm assuming that in 2021, part of the decrease is just the inability to get parts.
Yes.
Correct?
Yeah. And so that's, you kind of have to take that into consideration.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, we decreased, but then if we have trucks sitting on there and they're waiting on parts, is that really a good thing?
Yeah.
No,
So is this
no.
more like a catch-up, or do you think we'll see this increase each time? Because we were waiting on parts, those are now in, plus all the stuff we're doing this year. Could we see it maybe stabilize a little bit?
I don't think in the next year, they're still waiting on some parts.
Okay,
It's
that's what I'm asking.
At least when we talked to the fleet, that's what they told us.
Maybe 2024 will live well.
And I think part of it's what's gonna happen big picture economically.
Yeah.
So many unpredictable.
Yeah, because I assume that you still are having trouble with parts around houses and everything, trucks, so.
Right.
You have to get a 3D printer, a really big 3D printer.
Okay, the next one, this is where we see the refuse tons. So, you can see the colors of the graphs down below. The yellow is 2019, the gray is 2020, the orange is 21, and then the blue is 2022. When we look up there at the top, we were at 97,000 last year. This year, we're a little over 93,000. And approximately 2,000 of that is due to the scrap program. We still had some tons we were getting in, and so that's kind of an estimate, but about half of that decrease was due to decreased tons left of that scrap program. And then down below, you can see how that's made up. We started, we used ACE this year, and that's really, looks like it's taken some of the tons away from the transfer station and gone to ACE there, and then you can see the other, the four providers of that service that we have up there. ACE, TransJordan, the transfer station, Salt Lake County, and Salt Lake County Landfill. Okay, the next one, the recycle tons, and this just, the trend has been consistent every time I look at this, the last 3 or 4 years, where it's decreasing slightly year over year and from period to period. So, but this year, we're down about 3% compared
Is that
to where
because
we.
people are more educated and not throwing as much in there as they used to?
I would say that's a piece of it, absolutely. A little less, not a little less, there is less contamination, going in, and where people were putting in garbage, dirty with food products, that's happening less. It still happens, but not as much. I defer to my recycling gurus back here, is that an accurate statement? Yeah. He's got a very quiet voice, but Sione said yes.
This is the one that kind of gets your attention when it comes to recycling. So, you can see the years on up there, yellow is 2019, green is 2020, red is 21, and then the black is 2022. And so, the last couple months, in June, we paid this is on the black line, we paid $15 a ton. In July, 20, in August, $38, and for September, right around $62, the low 60s. And so we can see that increase. Pam will address some of these issues and kind of where we're at with that market here in just a few minutes before we get into that in some more detail. The other thing with recycling, and we'll see this here in just a minute, we did adjust the budget number up to $40 a ton. We had it at 35, and after the last couple of months, we thought that we better go up a little. So we did adjust that up to $40 a ton on the budget, and that's one of the budget changes.
For 23.
Yeah, for 23. And this is, I was just gonna say, just a reminder, we have 2 vendors on this, Rocky Mountain Recycling and Waste Management, and this is the average that we're paying them. They have been fairly similar to what we're paying them the last couple of months, and so it combines those 2.
The energy cost on their part as well?
Yeah, and commodity markets as well go into it. Dug in from the last board meeting, I let you know, I tried to get more information, so I do have that on the back.
Okay, the next one, the cash balances report. The table at the top just shows what our cash and investment balances were at the end of each month. And so you can see that's what actually is used to generate the graph, but I like to see the numbers too and to kind of see where we're at. And so we can see this year, we're down fairly significant from last year at 8.4 million versus about 9.4 million last year at this time. And it's interesting, we need to remember that we did not buy any side-load trucks or pay anything for them yet this year. And last year, we paid about 1.3 million in May. And so, you know, if we would have paid for the side-load trucks that we ordered, we'd be down, you know, another 1.4 to 1.5 million. We did get our 2 front-load trucks this year, and so we have paid for those, the second half of the payment on those. But as far as the side-load trucks, we'll talk about those in just a minute here. We have not paid anything, so our cash is decreasing and headed down, which we anticipated over time with the EPS costs, and then also just what's happened economically. As far as the investments go, like I said, they're liquid investments. I've said that before. They're liquid investments, which means we have access to them. If we need money out of them, we can get it within a day or two, and so we include those in here. Any questions on this? Cash investment balances. Okay, we'll move on. This is the capital expenditures, and this is what we budgeted for this year. We originally budgeted for 8 side-load trucks, and as far as the side-load trucks go, we were notified, I think, right before the September board meeting that we were not going to get those this year. And so, and that was after, just to remind everyone, we went back, we came back to the board, I should say, because they came to us and said, we can't honor your original price. We need to increase that. So we came back and did that $64,000 increase. So hopefully we get those trucks this year, and then they came back in September and said, well, you're not going to get those trucks this year. And so that's one thing we kind of have to stay flexible on, and it's a good thing in where we've held on to more trucks. We were holding on to the trucks to see as far as if they age, what's the maintenance, and trying to just see if that's beneficial. We think it is. But we did it for part of that purpose, and then just to increase our fleet size some, and it's helped us out in this scenario. So, but that 2.8 million there, like I said on the previous sheet of cash, we will not spend that this year. And so it makes our cash and investments look significantly higher than they would have been otherwise. So. And what's interesting to me is, we'll talk about it here in the budget, but in 2018, we paid $313,000 for a side-load truck. Last year, for 2022, we had budgeted $351,000. Now, we didn't get those, but that's the cost that they increased to. And for next year, we're going to be about $425,000. So from in the last 2 years, 2021 was $328,000 to go up to $425,000. They've almost increased $100,000 the truck in 2 years, which is really significant. So you're talking a 30% price increase, and that's if we can get them. You know, that's the challenge. It's not like they're sitting on the lot. That's hopefully if we can get them the price. So, but that was another adjustment to the budget too, coming up. So, yeah. We do anticipate receiving 2 trucks this year. There'll be trucks that'll be used in the trailer program, and we have not received any. Like I said, I'm careful to use the word anticipate. We can go get them, but I've just learned lately we can plan a budget, but it doesn't necessarily, you know, it doesn't play out. Yeah.
We even modified the specs so they were flatbed versus the bed in the back. And we're hoping to get those. We were told we would get them. So
yeah, and I checked last week and we're still on, but
Okay.
That can change. And then the next, sheet here shows the certification amounts, balances as of September 30th, 2022, amounts outstanding, and the original amount certified. Of that amount that we just certified is $2,226,000. There on the bottom, we'll get a pretty good portion of that here, I think in December, we'll get about 1.8 or 1.9. And so that really helps us out and is a beneficial way for us to deal with, amounts that are past due or that are unpaid. So, on to the next one. This is the customer funds. This was something we were asked to provide, I think this year, and we've been doing it. And so this is for the third quarter of 2022. I just have it, the checks that we issued to customers and then express bill pay. And so if they pay us by express bill pay, that's the method we will refund them. If they pay us by check, we'll refund by check. Really, the largest one here was someone paid us their mortgage payment. $3,097, about $1,400 of that was a mortgage payment. And then we have a payment of double payments, those type of things. But I think this is pretty typical. I mean, we have refunds, and a lot of times, as we talked about before, we'll try to get those back pretty quick. If it's a $1,500 payment on someone's mortgage, that gets their attention pretty quick, and it gets our attention. So if we turn around those, I think, get it timely fashion.
Yeah.
Any questions on that? Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it. And there's a method to the order in the agenda and having my report coming after the financial report mainly lead into the adjustments that we made and changes that we made from our proposed budget that we presented to you in September to now the tentative budget that we'll ask for your tentative adoption today. One of those, it has to do with recycling. Paul indicated that we've adjusted the amount per ton going into 2023, anticipating paying more, at least through spring. So last month I mentioned that we saw the jump in price per ton that we were paying to each vendor. And then just to go through how the pricing index works, just briefly, each vendor has a per ton base fee based on their cost per ton for processing. Board Member Barbieri mentioned, asked about the increase for energy costs and so forth. So we did receive a request from Rocky Mountain Recycling to increase their base fee. And so starting December 1, we will pay close to $100 per ton for base fee. Waste Management has in their contract that they can adjust theirs based on CPI, and it is general CPI. They initially asked for to be based on garbage and recycling CPI, which I negotiated that because, just so you know, that CPI is a lot higher than the quote-unquote normal CPI, overall CPI. So we anticipate Waste Management coming to us before the end of the year and asking to increase their base fee going into 2023. At that point, then, we get a price break depending on how those commodities sell on the market. And Sione does a great job in monitoring what is the pricing index looking like for the nationwide selling of those commodities. The recent change and why we've seen a jump and why you see a jump on that chart is that the commodity markets for paper and cardboard has changed. There were still commodity markets overseas with China, very small, but China was still accepting paper and cardboard and our commodities as long as they were really clean, so 99% pure, which means that we weren't shipping a lot over there as far as the country and the vendors. Understand, we don't do that. We drop it off and they sell it. And then the other foreign market that was open was in India for these commodities, and that has stopped too. We look at our fuel cost and imagine shipping containers overseas and what that cost is. So when containers are shipped full, those containers are full, if they're not going to come back full, then they may not even go over So the commodities are staying here for the domestic mills here. And we do have domestic mills that are buying the paper and the cardboard. However, there's a backlog. So right now, there's more supply than there is demand. And then you have the other, side of that, the purchasers of those, recycled commodities out of the mills, like Amazon. And they only, it's ready to rock out. They only purchased about 3 months worth of product, even going into the winter seasons and when we're all buying, offline, online and getting deliveries online. And then the, paper mills are stockpiling about 2 months worth. So there's more supply than there is demand right now. So the cost for, our vendors for them to take cardboard and paper right now is a lot higher than it was. And what they are doing is stockpiling it here locally, and then any other vendor within the nation is stockpiling as well, waiting for those markets to improve, and then they will sell them at a higher price. So we're paying more to have them, each vendor take those. The other thing that will help to keep that cost low are the other commodities, like metal, like aluminum, tin. We love those in the recycling bin. There's also the plastic. So the water bottles are the PET, and then we have the jugs, like laundry detergent, dish soap. Those are worth some money out there, and that helps to hopefully keep our costs low. The predictions are that we are looking at least until March before we see some improvement, but we could see there be another spike in October. We are reaching the prices that we paid in 2019, and I anticipate that going forward. And I just wanted to make sure that you were prepared for that and not get that sticker shock. And then Renee, if you'll scroll down slightly, I mentioned the cause for the decline, and then if you go to the next page, just recommendations from us as staff, and from me, I would say we stay the course, just like we did in 2019, and ride the storm out. Those commodities will be reused, and it's just a delay right now, because like I mentioned, there's too much supply and not enough demand at this time. So that's where we're at. That's what we've included in the budget, is $40 per ton based on the 20,000 ton that we collect from district residents.
Just, maybe I missed it, but how often do the recyclers change their costs to us?
The waste management is annually, and Rocky Mountain Recycling has not raised their base fee since we entered into the last contract, and I think that was 18, I believe. So this is their first increase to us. We anticipate another one from waste, because their costs are going up.
Yeah, so I guess I was just you're talking about how things can change so quickly depending on the commodities markets, and supply and demand gets off kilter. But, so I was just looking, so we're using this as a prediction for waste management cost, adjustment on an annualized basis, rather than, it's not like we're seeing these changes, every month, every quarter, or something like that. Okay.
No. A good question. It's annual. So that's the recommendation, and unless I get other direction, that's where we're headed. I think we just need to write it out once again, understanding that, yes, we did in September pay more than we would if we landfilled those commodities, if they went right to the landfill. But again, it's not just looking at that price, it's looking at the long-term price to the environment and to the economy going forward. That's been the philosophy, and so that's the philosophy I will follow unless I get other direction from you.
Yeah, we talked a little bit in pre-board about this too, but, it's not even like you could say, okay, well, this month is bad, all the recycled people just go to the landfill. It's just, the logistics of any change like that are crazy too, and costly. So it's easier to to write it out with the idea that the whole reason we do recycle is exactly Pam's point, so. See what the market does. That's my opinion anyway.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I mean, I know for the citizens that I represent, the environmental piece is really important to them, so we need to hope that it, changes and we have more domestic, eventually.
Yeah, more domestic options, yeah, for sure.
And they did open up, the domestic meals opened up where they were not before, so there were adjustments made here in the US, and I anticipate there'll be more adjustments. Yeah. Thank you. We have to.
As a lot of our recycling, has it changed and become dirtier? I guess the reason I wonder that is I've seen some, television commercials saying that you don't need to wash things out and dirty pizza boxes can be recycled and that sort of thing.
Yeah, good question. So I know that Sione and McKenna's our sustainability coordinator. Sione is the manager of the recycling and sustainability program. And there are audits that each vendor does. I don't know if either one of you want to speak to the contamination rate, but district-wide, the contamination rate is about what right now?
About 27.
27%.
Is that pretty consistent with what it's been, or has it changed?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it does fluctuate.
Yeah.
There are some areas that are actually in the teens, and others that might be slightly higher than the, so on an average is what Jimmy was talking about, 27, sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah. Other questions about recycling specifically, or any of this information before we go on? Okay. The next,
Can I ask a question?
yeah,
Why are they running those apps?
say that again.
Why are they running those apps? Because I've seen them too, where you don't have to clean up pizza boxes, they're not recyclable, you don't have to wash your stuff, all that kind of stuff. Why are they running those apps if that's actually not true?
It's probably just national recycling people wanting everything recycled.
But it doesn't matter. Nobody's taking the contaminated stuff, they don't want it. So why are they running those apps if that's the case, unless they're trying to,
You know, I thought those, I could be thinking of different ads.
I have seen the exact ad. You don't need to wash your stuff in the dishwasher anymore, you don't need to clean out the food, you don't need to, your pizza boxes are now recyclable. I saw those just recently, the
Yeah.
exact same ad.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm thinking of ads I've seen, they're probably the same ones. For my brain, it went to, oh, we're trying to cut down on the use of water.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a Utah thing. I thought those were probably produced locally.
And if they're produced locally, it's about water, then they need to say that we're not recycling site, you can't recycle.
Exactly. So don't throw,
Because that's messing us up.
it'd be really interesting to know.
Yeah,
Sponsors them, you know.
I'm trying to remember, so I've seen them a dozen times.
Yeah.
I've never seen it. And I have to apologize, I haven't seen it because I don't watch a lot of TV, but,
No, I didn't see it on TV, social media.
oh.
I've seen it both places.
Yeah, I know they're both places, but I haven't seen it on TV. I saw it on social media because I don't watch any TV.
Okay.
That might be something interesting to look into.
Sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you, I will.
Really helpful to us.
I will. McKenna's on social media with our, education, and so she can dive in, and we'll gather more information for October. Yes.
Billboard,
Yes.
I'm sure you've all seen the billboard that says plastic recycling is not real.
Yeah.
That is actually a company that creates, reusable items. So they're trying to get people to buy their reusable items by saying recycling doesn't happen, which is interesting, but,
Oh,
Yeah, I see that.
I've seen that one.
yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's motives behind everything. The education that, McKenna puts out and what we say is that as long as it's empty, it's recyclable. Please put it in the blue bin, like a water bottle, it needs to be empty.
Sure.
Pop bottle, pop can needs to be empty before it goes in, because that's where it will be contaminated, but it does not have to be rinsed, per se. Yeah, the recycling 101 page on our website is really informative.
And that's my point. And to be honest, one of the things that might be helpful is, I usually see it, because the only thing I ever watch online and social media wise is news.
Yeah.
And that's what they're attached to, news stories,
Oh,
the media, the pages and things like that. So that's where I would look.
okay.
But that's where I'm seeing them every time. But if it's coming up and you're looking at news and that's something going out, then there's a lot of people getting that.
Yes, true. Unfortunately,
Yeah, so will you guys look into that and maybe report back next month?
absolutely. Thank you for that. The next section of my report, I wanted to just give you a briefing of, where we're at. I mentioned that we wanted to get out and educate each municipal council and mayor and that in the public meeting so that we're pushing out many ways and avenues for residents to learn about our 2023 budget and the fee increase. So far, we've made it to the council meetings there listed at the bottom with Mill Creek, which I plan on visiting again in November because I visited them very early in September. And Kearns, Paul and I, just so you know, Paul and I are the ones going out and reporting. So Magna, Kearns, and then also I went to White City just last week. We visited Copperton, Metro Township. So the ones that are remaining that we have on schedule are listed above. And then, if Renee, would you mind pulling up? We have posted the reports, online under our website, and this is under budget, or the actual report, I think, is on the, logistics page, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is an updated website. If you haven't been on to see it, it is really snazzy. And then down below is the tentative budget that we'll post. Is that the one that has the report? Yeah, okay, so this is the one that we're taking out to the municipalities to, educate on why we're raising rates. So if you wouldn't mind just scrolling back up to that cover page, just to state that for each of your respective municipalities, I add the logo over onto the right for your city.
Pam,
Yes, sir.
sorry to interrupt. Those of us online, I'm not seeing what you're discussing. All I see is the agenda.
Go to the About, our Board of Trustees,
And scroll down,
scroll down, and then click on this one.
under budget information.
So what he's saying is that.
You just can't see your screen.
Oh, you can't have.
I can't see your screen.
Oh,
Sure, that's
yeah,
pretty-
sorry about that. Sorry, Eric. I'm a little slow on the uptake.
Oh, okay,
So, yeah, I just need to stop sharing and then share the internet. There we go.
got it. Thank you.
There you go. Thank you, Barney. Sorry about that. But anyway, we'll have the logo for your municipality on the right side. The thing I want to say is point out is our mission, and maybe I don't state this enough, but why we exist and the purpose for Warford is to provide the sustainable, quality, integrated waste and recycling collection services for the health and safety of our community. It's really important to say for the health and safety of our community. You can imagine if garbage piles up, and we saw it with the former area cleanup program. Those piles in the street, they create health issues with going into the storm drain pollutants, safety issues with materials being in the road, or the scavengers pulling out the material, things of that nature. So we clean it up. We pick up the stuff, haul it to where it needs to be, and get it processed. And then we have the variety of programs because not everything fits in that curbside can. And then our vision is a sustainable, integrated organization that provides for the welfare of our community. And that it's our entire team that makes everything happen. That's one of the things I want to make sure I tout. I have a great team here with Woodward and skilled people to help us get the job done. You've seen the budget priorities, and we'll go through that in our 2023 budget, tentative budget. And it lists out in number one, first and foremost, we want to sustain the services that we have. Number two is we need to manage, the increased costs, and really, we've absorbed the increased costs that we'll go through in the next page, and Paul, reiterated the price of trucks going up. But we have a fee increase as part of the budget, as well as to the town of Brighton. We did not have a fee increase in 2018, the last time we raised rates. And then we are always looking for those improvements to improve efficiencies. So this is just a briefing that I'll go through with each of your councils. And then there is that savings using CNG versus diesel. Then if you'll scroll down, Renee, this is one of the things I really wanted to make sure that you as a board saw, is that this has changed since the last time we showed this to you, and I think it was in June. And we did not have the tentative budget numbers part of that. So going out to each municipalities, we are showing you what next year looks like in those increases. So wages and overtime is up about 1.1 million. Understanding that that's not just the salary market adjustments, it's also those 2 new FTEs that you approved this year, and then the 3 additional FTEs for drivers next year to try to help with scrap. You can see the increased costs for fuel, maintenance, disposal, recycling. That's where we adjusted that. And then the total amount, and you can see the price of each truck going up, $425,000 total for each of those. So you'll notice down at the bottom, and this is where I'm thankful that you as a board, said, well, Pam, your thought of $2 a month doesn't seem like it's gonna cut it, and you were right. And I thank you for your wisdom to say we need to go to $250 per home per month, because you can see that we are well justified, because those categories I just mentioned are only 5 of our biggest price tags right now, are expensive. That doesn't include the entire budget. So the entire budget is over $24 million, and you divide that by 86,000 homes, and we're into the $20 per home per month average. So thank you.
Will that document be part of the presentation?
Yes, ma'am. This is the presentation.
Okay.
And if you all have any other information that you would like to take out to your councils, let me know. The 9 councils we haven't gotten to yet, we've made the adjustments with trucks. That's been the biggest gain.
Yeah.
And the recycling increase.
What does the last line item mean, $3.45 monthly? Does that mean that's the real cost increase that's being projected, but we're not raising rates to that level?
Yes, ma'am.
I was just gonna say too, it's not, we have to remember, we increased before in 2018, so we got some of that benefit of that increase too. The time periods overlap, and this is exactly this time period. We got some of the benefits from the increase in 2018, but I think this does justify, yes, we need to do a fee increase this year. Because you look at that, about 345, well, shouldn't we be doing that? But we did get that benefit from the increase of 2018 over a lot of this period. But we want to stay ahead of it and not get behind.
I think, Paul has illustrated the cash balance, which is the next page, and the 94% of what is budgeted is what these cash projections are based on. The estimated for 2022, not to steal Paul's thunder, because he'll go through this, but this is the fact that we have not been able to purchase our trucks, right? So the side loads are gonna carry over to 2023, but, it's not just the 8 that we were anticipating this year. For next year, we budgeted for 12 side loads at that $425,000. And you might ask, well, why aren't we budgeting for 16? We know we won't be able to get 16. We won't be able to do any makeup for 8 and 8, because that's been our replacement schedule every year is 8 trucks. We've been guaranteed 4 allocated spots for trucks. Been told we could get as high as 8 or 10. There's so many maybes. We're budgeting for the best case scenario where we could actually get 12 side load trucks. Understanding that if we don't, but we have to make some adjustments for any light-duty trucks, or hopefully the price of the sidewall doesn't go up again. We don't have to come back to this board and say, oh, we need to do a mid-year capital adjustment, or if we do, we will come back, but we will always keep you posted as to what we're paying out, always.
I was gonna ask you a question on that. I know that part of it is because we're kind of low dog on the total pool as far as we don't order 5,000 trucks or things like that. Is there any way we could co-op, I don't know how to say it, but that join with some other people and make our numbers higher so that we can get trucks?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. We've been researching other co-op, contracts that we can piggyback on. And, I've been working with Rachel and Nick Hughes at the state to find out for sure if we can use this nationwide co-op and jump on those, for a couple different reasons. So we can partner with others, or be part of those contracts. And then the other thing is to use multiple vendors. So right now we have contracts with Peterbilt and, forgotten the name of the other one for the body, but, we want to, yeah, super. They might come about maybe, but we want to be able to maybe we get the 4 from these other the chassis and body vendors, and then we get 8 more from somebody else. So we just want to be flexible, so thank you for asking that. We are researching everything. Yeah.
Your time.
Okay. So, no, you're good. So that's the report we'll take out, and if you think of questions or anything before, we get to your particular municipalities, please reach out and let me know, and I'll get with Paul, and we'll make any adjustments or add information. Okay. And then the last page of the presentation just goes through the steps for the, budget process going forward, and I have my contact information if any residents or elected officials have questions. Happy to answer. Okay, so thank you, Renee.
Okay, awesome. We'll move on to 3.3, tentative adoption of the 2023 tentative budget and fee schedule.
All right. I think I went through the whys and service levels and personnel. And we'll feel back up, Renee, to the dollars and cents. I'll turn it over to Paul.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk a minute about what did we change from the prior version here. And so there was a few different categories that changed. One was personnel expenses actually decreased about $31,000. This was because we received information on our health insurance and our vision insurance, and they decreased. We had, well, I should say one of them increased less than I budgeted before. Health insurance, we had a 5% increase, and I think the actual was 3.3.
Yep.
And then on dental insurance, we had a 5%, and we actually are going to go with another entity on that, and it's a decrease of about 9%.
Nice.
So that's why personnel expenses actually went down about $31,000. That's one of the categories. The other category that changed was recycling fees, and that's up about $100,000. We probably talked about that. The other category that changed was depreciation expense, and it significantly decreased. It's down almost $600,000 from the prior version that we had, and that's due to the fact that we didn't buy those 8 trucks this year, so we're not depreciating them next year. And that's why the depreciation went down so much. And then at the bottom there, the capital expenditures number increased significantly to $5,350,000. And I think we have a sheet in here that shows how that's made up. We'll look at here in just a minute. So those were the changes. Actually, overall, there was a decrease, primarily due to that depreciation expense with a fairly significant change. Okay, on to the next slide. We just looked at this a minute. This is the tentative cash projections. There was changes here. And on this, what I did for 2022, since we know we're not going to get those trucks, is I just put on for capital expenditures there in 2022, fourth line from the bottom, $493,000, and that's the second payment on 2 front load trucks, and then also the 2 flatbed trucks that Pam just mentioned that hopefully we should have this year. But when we did that, that really changed that ending cash and investments for 2022. So before, we were projecting that decreasing by, I think, almost $2.83 million due to those side load trucks, and that's not going to happen. So it makes our cash investments look better this year. I still think we just have to be aware of what created that, and then in the future, the cost of trucks, and that, that balance could still decrease. So and that's not really any reason to me to change course, just on the timing of when we can buy these trucks. But it will make our cash and investments balance at year-end look much better than I previously projected. And then the next slide, we can look at this. This just is main categories by expenses. We can see there what are the big ones: personnel, maintenance, disposal fees, and then depreciation expense. That's all I wanted to mention on the 2023 budget on this draft or this version. I did round amounts to the nearest 100, and there was some slight changes there, but it's pretty immaterial, but it just makes it cleaner. And then the next slide, this is what we were talking about. Pam mentioned the 12 side load trucks at $425,000 each. That gets us the $5.1 million, and then 3 light duty trucks, and then the used hook lift truck. And so this is where we came up with the $5,350,000 for capital expenditures. And like we said, we're not sure we're going to get those, but we wanted to budget it, get approval, and then that gives us the ability to move if we get an opportunity or see things happen. When you're talking about different sources, or can we look at different areas and still make sure they're approved and we're in order with everything as far as purchasing goes, but it gives us that opportunity. We generally have sold 8 trucks per year. Purchased 8 trucks per year, and that's what we wanted to do this year and next year, but with not buying any this year, that's why we went to 12 next year. Currently, we have 56 side load trucks in operation, or some of them are always needing maintenance or being repaired, but currently have 56. Any questions as far as the changes or why we did them?
I'm just curious, 56 trucks, how many full-time drivers?
62 allocations, and then there'll be 65 for next year. There's a relief pool.
Sure, they just rotate.
Yeah.
And then a 4-day work week.
They work 14.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, so that makes a difference too.
20% are off every day.
Is there like a price break once we get to like 12 or 16 trucks, are they?
I think you might have been able to ask that a couple of years ago. In this environment today, I don't think there's a price break. I do think too with government entities, this is my personal opinion. You look at some of the costs and what we were paying before, I think it was very beneficial. Like when I came here, I saw we were paying for an F-354 diesel 4-wheel drive 1-ton, like $45,000. That's ridiculously low in my mind. If I went out to buy that truck, I'd be paying $30,000 more. And so I think we did get benefit in the past from our contracts and from that power. But I think what's happened, in my opinion, is they have way more demand than they have supply, and they're going to go with, I think, the entities that buy a lot, but not only buy a lot, but are willing to pay significantly more. So our costs and our contracts have benefited us for years. Right now, I think they're for-profit entities, and they're looking and saying, would we rather sell this for, $350 to Wasatch or $400 out on the open market? And I'm not positive that's happening, but I feel like it is, and I think it's happening.
Supply and demand.
Yeah, it's supply and demand, and I think that's happening with our trucks. So, a lot of it's just, it's immediate economic.
And that'll change.
It will.
Yeah, it has to, right?
Yeah.
It's not sustainable.
It's just riding it out until then, but it might shine the light on a cost benefit in a co-op type of state where even in the future, if you're ordering 8 trucks versus if you can tag on to somebody that's ordering 800 trucks, you're gonna get a better price break. So it might be something, it's advantageous for us anyway.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Cool. government pool, kind of like the trust.
Okay.
So the fees themselves, this just gives a summary, and then the fee schedule, I believe, is the next, few pages. Goes through, and we've reviewed these with you as a board. These are broken out so that you can see the 2022 fees and then the fees going into 2023. There is a second can startup fee of $70 to pay for the can. And the question has come up, you know, well, okay, so I'm gonna get a second garbage can. I'm gonna pay that $70 and I should own it. It's like, no, it's like renting an apartment. You pay for rent, and then you also pay for utility. So the utility is us coming by and emptying that can every week. And the $70 is rent. If that makes sense.
Did we decide not to do the scrap fee? Yeah.
Correct.
It's on here.
Oh, is it on there?
Yeah.
I apologize. Okay, sorry, I missed that.
That's okay.
That must have been the old
There's a
one.
lot of things to say.
So that will be deleted and updated. That will not be on the tentative, fee schedule. My apologies for not catching that. So thanks for catching that, Board Chair. Yeah. So everything else besides that is up to date, including the green trailer going up to 55. We increased the landfill fees when people rent trailers to add in the tires, those fees that we get charged from the landfill. So that's just a pass-through from us. And so we minus that seasonal container reservation. And then going down to the front load, the dumpster, we increased those, $5 for each size of for each, dumpster size. And then we wanna do a thorough analysis of our front load services to see if we need to make another, rate adjustment for 2024, but we would let you know that, as part of the proposed budget for 2024 when we get there next September, August, September. There's no questions on that. I think we've covered everything. Did we miss anything, Paul, for?
I don't think so. I don't think we got any changes from the prior version.
Okay.
Okay, does anyone have any questions or comments on the budget or the fee schedule? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Move we tentatively approve the tentative budget for 2023.
Okay, I have a motion by Laurie, can I have a second?
I'll second Anna with Taylor's bill.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, is there any discussion?
I'd like to just say, I had a sleepless night over the weekend thinking about this, It's a fee increase at a tough time. It's justifiable, it's understood. You know what I kind of wish, you guys, we've been spending a lot of time as a board talking about the scrap program and what we're gonna do about it. I'm not sure anyone's really happy and satisfied with it right now. You know, what would have been nice is if we had had that question resolved at this point. I'll tell you, for Sandy, and we're a real outlier because of 26,000 customers, only 600 are Woodford customers. I would say for us, I think we would love to be let out of the scrap program, and if we don't need it, we obviously don't really use it. If that could translate into a fee reduction of $1.25 a month, that would offset half of what this fee increase is. So I'm just kind of putting that out on the table. It would have been nice if we had that worked out. I know we're still in the process of it, and it's not an easy question to answer because all of our communities use the program differently, right? Some have a waiting list, some of us aren't using it at all. Anyway, I understand, I think the justification for the cost increases, I see it, I understand it. Just kind of wanted to express my concerns about doing this at this time with inflation and how it's hitting everyone. That's it. just kind of wanted to express what I've been grappling with over the weekend. But I do understand the need. I appreciate all the effort that's been put in by staff to help us understand why we need to do what we need to do.
It's a very valid question and point, and we had a conversation, about this in detail, and anything's possible, you know, to have different rates for different areas and based on usage and so forth. And that was the discussion, anything's possible. It's just a matter of, let's dive in and really figure out what is the true cost. And, we based that $1.25 per home per month for scrap on previous costs from 2021 and 2020, I think it was 2020 and 2021.
Yeah.
So we would want to look at, okay, what does it cost in 2022 if we were going to say, okay, this municipality wants out and they want a reduction in a fee, what would that really mean and look like? So anyway, that discussion was, we talked about that.
Let me, Dan Gibbons from Holiday, let me express some thoughts. I appreciate Cindy's concern, and what rings true to me is her initial statement that none of us are fully satisfied with what's happened with the scrap program. I think that's absolutely true, and I would bet that's probably a sentiment that most of the board members have, maybe all of us. And I'm not satisfied personally either with sort of the evolution. A lot of it's been, well, all of it's been forced upon us by economic realities. But I really believe that this is a topic beyond what we're voting on here, which is the tentative budget, which I think we ought to pass the tentative budget. But I really believe that this ought to be a major agenda item in 2023 for us to come to some kind of finality on. And maybe we even get creative and think about what the future holds. Maybe it's a biennial program. Maybe we do allow a different fee structure for municipalities. But whatever that is, I agree with Cindy that ought to be a big topic for discussion in our 2023 meetings. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Thank you. And I too, I think that's been clearly stated to staff, and our team here understands that that's a priority for the board. Okay, yes, Scott.
Oh, one of the things I think is important, I mean, I can see that we need the fee increase to continue to provide the services. The concern I have kind of goes along the same lines. I think people should get the same service for the same price. And so to the extent that our scrap program is somewhat limited, it's bothersome to me that people that aren't able to use it the way that they would like pay the same as the people that get a lot more use from the program. But I, understand we can't really resolve that today. But keeping that in mind, I would like to see us tie the level of services to an individual home to the price that individual resident pays.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah, this is Eric from Magna. First off, thank you, Paul and Pam, for the thoughtful consideration in putting together the budget. It's clear that you've tried to think through all the contingencies and all the issues that are going to arise. It's clear to me that you've been thoughtful and planful about potential increases in the future and how do we account for that. So thank you for all of that. I will second that I do feel like we've got to come to a final conclusion on the scrap program. It's a really sensitive topic in my community. There's a lot of concerns. Pam received some of those when she came and visited our council meeting a few weeks ago. I get hesitant when I hear people wanting to pull out of the scrap program and not have that be part of their contract with Woodford, because it's not a one for one thing. It's not like your $1.25 covers the total cost of the program. It supplements, but it doesn't cover the total cost. So I don't know that that makes sense or that it works. I also sympathize with the idea that some people don't get to take advantage of the program, yet they still pay for it. And that doesn't feel right either. I don't know where middle ground is, but gosh, I'm not comfortable with where we're at presently. I'm also not comfortable with all the ideas that have been voiced to this point. That's all.
Yeah, thanks, Eric, and I just reiterate, I think there's so many good questions that have been raised, good concerns have been raised here. We just simply need to have that discussion as a board with factual information, and we can just hammer out, what's the best thing to move forward. Is there any other comments?
Can I just say, I appreciate everyone's comments and your concerns, and we definitely want to come back with more information and really dive in. So thank you very much. Totally appreciate everything. And your time. Call me anytime for questions.
All right, if there's no more comments, I'll call the question and ask all those who are in favor to say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Move to item number 3.4, confirm the date and time for public hearing to allow public comment on the 2023 budget and fee schedule scheduled on Monday, November 14th at 6 p.m.
Maybe would you scroll to the very last page? There we go. Here's the calendar. Katarina, thank you for putting this together. I have you listed on the agenda. How about that?
Well, this is my first time. How do you review, everybody just look at it?
We've kept the, board meeting date and time pretty much the same, the fourth Monday of every month unless there's a holiday. And you can see where those might be adjusted. So the board meetings are in yellow, outlined in red. The pre-boards are blue, highlighted. And then the holidays are those green. So you can see where we had to make some adjustments because of holidays. And we just need a motion and second and approval if you all agree. If there's any suggestions for changes, we have time for adjustments.
Okay, does anyone have any questions or comments on the schedule?
This is Tessa Stitzer with Copperton. Are we approving the hearing date for November 14th first, or are we doing this agenda item now?
Yeah, sorry, Tess.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
right. I'm like,
Thanks,
you know,
Tessa.
got here.
They're awake.
Good telling us. Okay, if there's no questions about the public hearing or comments, I would accept a motion on that. You have a standing motion down.
Tessa Stitzer, I will motion to approve the hearing date November 14th at 6 p.m.
Thanks, Tessa. Can I have a second?
Eric Barney, Magna, I'll second.
Okay, Eric Barney, second. Is there, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, now,
From Mill Creek abstains.
who abstained, I'm sorry?
Tom DeSirant from Mill Creek.
You abstain from confirming the date, Tom? Just to be clear.
Yes, sorry, I'm on another call and I'm not sure what's happening. I apologize.
Oh, okay. We just confirmed the date and the time of the public hearing to allow public comment, which would be November 14th at 6 p.m. I can catch up with you later, make sure that you can come.
Okay. we'll move to item 3.5, 2023 board meeting calendar. That's what we were just discussing. So does anybody have any questions on the board meeting calendar or any concerns about those dates? If not, I would accept the motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2023 board meeting calendar. Diane Turner, Murray Sue.
Okay, can I get a second? Second. Laurie Stream, second. Is there any conversation in regards to this, any discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Is there any opposed? Okay, that passes. Awesome. Do we have any needs for a close?
Nope.
Okay. Does anyone else have any other board business or they'd like to discuss? Yes, Steve?
Oh, thank you for asking. That's that first Thursday and Friday, or, yeah, next week.
Oh, special district, yeah, it's next week.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the 23rd.
The second, third, and fourth, right?
Mm-hmm. November 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Thank you for asking. Normally we give you a heads up.
No other board? All right, then the requested items for the next board meeting will be, and the public hearing is Monday, November 14th at 6 p.m. We'll have the public hearing to allow public comment on the tentative 2023 budget and fee increases, staff review on the tentative 2023 budget and fee increases, business items, general manager's report, and then at the board option, adopt the 2023 budget and fee increase pending public comment. So that being said, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
A second? Second. All right. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll see you
Thank you.
November 14th.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
The training.
And is there a pre-board meeting before that public hearing?
Yes, in fact, do you want to schedule it before you all take off?
Sure.